Hi everybody, it's me, Miss Lisa. Welcome to Stitch Kids, a sewing club for kids, sponsored by the South Huntington Public Library Children's Department. For our first project, we are going to make a tomato pin pal. I call this a pin pal because this tomato holds my sewing pins. The tomato is going to be our first project, so it can hold your sewing pins throughout the rest of the fall and winter as we work on our other projects. To complete this project, you will need a craft kit from the South Huntington Public Library. Your craft kit includes one piece of red fleece with a circle drawn on it, one piece of green felt with 4 leaves drawn on it, red and green thread, a pom-pom, 2 googly eyes, a piece of pipe cleaner, a small piece of ribbon, and a handful of cotton stuffing. Your craft kit will also include a sewing kit from the South Huntington Public Library. Please be sure to keep this sewing kit to use for the rest of the projects we work on this year. These are the tools that you will need for sewing. Inside this kit, you'll find needles and pins, and you will also find a needle threader, which will be very helpful for threading needles for sewing your projects. You will also need a pair of scissors, some kind of heavy-duty glue like tacky glue, or if you have a grown-up who can help you, a hot glue gun. Let's begin. Before you can begin sewing, you will need to prepare your needle. Choose a needle from your sewing kit that has a rather large eye. This is the eye of the needle here. You will also use this tool from your sewing kit, which is called a needle threader. This makes it easy to get a big piece of thread, like that embroidery thread, through a small hole like a needle's eye. So what you will do is take the metal wire part of the needle threader and push it through the eye of your needle, like that. While you're holding your threader still, grab your thread and put your thread through the loop of the needle threader, like this, and leave a little bit of a tail. Now, pull the needle threader and pull the thread through the eye of the needle far enough that the tail will come through like that. There you go. And we're going to leave just a little bit of a tail hanging off of the end of our needle. And now we will go to the other end of the thread where we will add a knot. I already have a knot here in this thread, but I will show you how to make your own knot, leaving a couple of inches as a tail at the end. So loop the thread around your finger and then push the tail through the loop and pull. You may want to do this twice because we are using a thick needle and some thick thread, and we don't want the string to get pulled through the fabric as we sew. There you have it. Okay, so we're going to work with the red circle first. This is our tomato pin pal's body. You're going to start by making some straight stitches about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. And a straight stitch is just pushing the needle in and then pushing it through the other side while leaving some fabric in the middle like that. Push the needle in and then pull. And then you skip a little space of fabric, push the needle in, push it out after leaving a little bit of fabric in the middle like this. And this is just your straight stitch. Very basic, very easy. The hardest part about sewing can sometimes be working with fleece, because its nice soft warm fibers are close together, and we have to work a little harder to push the needle and pull the thread through those fabric fibers. In and out. Just like that. You can do one stitch at a time, like I'm doing here, or you can do 2 stitches, like this, to move it along a little bit faster. However, when you're working on a sewing project, there's really no need to be in a hurry. The great thing about sewing is that you can work on it a little bit at a time. You can pick it up when you have nothing else to do a little bit, set it aside, and come back to it another time. Okay, so now you're going to continue with your straight stitches all the way around the red circle until you get to where you started. You'll notice as you're sewing that your fabric might pucker up a little bit like this. Don't worry about it. If it wants to stay puckered like that, that's fine. Just leave it and continue on your way all the way around the circle until you get to the end. As you are sewing, remember that there is a loose tail thread hanging off of your needle. While you're sewing, you might want to pinch that very gently to keep it from going through your needle. However, if it does fall off while you're sewing, simply use your needle threader and rethread your needle and continue. I've gone about halfway around my circle, and you'll notice that my thread is starting to get a little bit short, and it seems like I'm not going to be able to make it all the way over to where I started. As I've been sewing, I've been keeping my stitches as even as possible, and I've been keeping them about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the red fabric. Now, what I'm going to do is pull on my thread where the needle is. I'm going to pull and push the fabric away from the needle very gently. So it looks like I'm making a little pouch. And you'll notice now I have a little bit more thread to work with, and I can continue on my way around the circle. So if you notice that you are running out of thread, you can stop, pull your thread, push the fabric away, and it gives you a little bit more thread to work with. Don't worry that it's getting puckered up. What's actually happening here is that this red fleece is turning into a beautiful tomato shape. So now you can continue with your stitches as before, remembering to keep them as straight as possible and within about 1/4 of an inch of the edge of your red fleece. Like that. Okay, I've been stitching and pulling all the way around the red circle, and I'm almost at the end. So carefully continue your stitches and get as close as possible to your original stitch, which has the tail that's hanging off the side of the circle. Okay, so you want to get about that close. Looks like it's within a stitch length. Now we're going to make the circle into a nice pouch shape. by pulling both of these threads in one direction and pushing the fleece in the other direction with our other hand. Like so. So now we have a nice pouch shape. But before we pull the whole top together, we want to add some stuffing. Pull a little piece of stuffing off of the ball and just push it all the way in to the bottom of the red fleece. And continue until your tomato is as round as you would like it to be. Looks like we could add just a little bit more. Make it nice and round. Okay. There we go. All of our stuffing is inside the pouch. So I'm going to use one hand to hold the stuffing into the pouch. I'm going to use the other hand to pull the two threads, the original thread with the tail and the thread that has my needle on it. And I'm going to pull the top tight so that we can't see the stuffing, or so that we get as close as possible to not being able to see the stuffing. Your stuffing will eventually be covered up with your tomato leaves. That looks pretty good. So now, while you're holding onto your thread, let's get rid of this sharp needle so we don't get hurt. Put it back in my pin pal. Now we have two threads, and we're just going to tie these, we're going to knot these together to hold the top of our tomato closed. So just tie a knot to start with. There we go. And then one more to make sure that it stays closed when we add the leaves. And there we go. Now you have a nice, fluffy, plushy tomato shape. And you can trim these loose threads with a pair of scissors. Okay. Wonderful. Now it's time to attach the leaves. We have 4 leaves that we're going to arrange on the top of the tomato, and we're going to use pins to hold them in place. You can pin the leaf on anywhere you would like. The goal is just to get it to stay there and to stay in one place while you sew it onto the tomato's body. There's 2. Let's use a bright one. Here we go. 3 and 4. We're going to use the green thread. Use the needle threader. Push the needle threader through the eye of the needle. Put one end of the thread through the loop of the threader. Make a small tail. Carefully pull the thread through the eye and stop when the tail comes out. Now the needle is threaded. We have a little tail at the top. And we're going to go down to the other end and make a knot. This time we don't need to leave a long tail at the end, but we will make a double knot to keep the knot from slipping through the fleece and the felt as we sew. There's a nice double knot at the end and a little tiny tail. Okay. Securing the leaves to the top of your tomato is not as difficult as it was to sew the body of the tomato, but we're going to just add 1 stitch to each leaf to tack the leaf to the body of the tomato. I'm going to lift up a leaf and I'm going to push the green thread through one of these folds in the red fleece and then push it through the green felt on the first leaf and pull it nice and tight. This way we're hiding that little fuzzy tail behind the top of the leaf. Now you're going to leave a little bit of space, push the needle through the green felt and into the red fleece underneath, and then pull it nice and tight. Now we'll do the same for the other three, working from underneath. Push through the red fleece into the green felt and pull. Leave a little bit of space, push through your green felt and into the red fleece underneath. See if I can show you that. There we go. And then pull, nice and tight. There we go. At your last stitch, we're going to tie it off. So you're going to poke through a little bit of the red fleece right near where your last stitch is. And you're going to make a loop with your thread, like that. Put the needle through the loop and pull, and that will leave a nice knot behind. And now you can trim the green thread with your scissors. You can remove any of the pins that you were using. And smooth out your leaves. Alrighty. Coming along nicely. You should have a little bit of green thread left on your needle. Let's make a knot at the other end and we will attach the stem. I'm going to make a double knot as before. There we go. And this little piece of ribbon is what we will use for a stem. Fold your ribbon in half and pinch it at the bottom like this. Then we're going to find a place inside the top of the leaf where we can maybe sew it into some of this red fleece. That looks like a good spot right there. I'm going to need both hands for sewing. So I'm going to use a pin to hold the stem in place while I sew. Just poke the pin right in there. This is going to be a little tricky because you don't have too much space in here to work with, but really we just need one stitch to hold the stem in place. Okay, so we're going to go underneath. We're going to go through the red fleece up into the ribbon and then pull. Pull very carefully so you don't move your ribbon out of place. And then come back down through the ribbon and into the red fleece. And very carefully pull it all the way through. So you have one stitch that's tacking your leaf, that's tacking your stem into place. Let's do what we did before, and we will make a knot underneath the stem by pushing the needle through, let's see, a little piece of red fleece right about there. Make a loop. You're going to put your needle through this loop and pull so you have a knot, and then we'll trim the thread and remove the pin, and now we'll rearrange the top of our tomato buddy so that it kind of hides. Rearrange the top of the tomato buddy so that it sort of hides where we made that stitch for the stem. And now we are ready to add a face. Your kit includes 2 eyes, a pom-pom for a nose, and a piece of pipe cleaner that we can bend on the ends into a little mouth shape. And we will add these to our pin pal with some glue. So decide which side you like the best. I think I'd like to put my face right there. I'm going to lean my tomato buddy up against my other pen pal, and I'm going to add 2 dabs of glue for the eyes. One dab of glue for the nose. Maybe a little bit more than that. Here we go. Don't worry if your glue shows through. Most likely your glue will dry clear. You won't be able to see it. And let's see, how would we like the mouth to look? Let's try a couple of different things before we glue it down. That looks good. And I'm going to put the glue on the back of the mouth. And then press it into the tomato's base. Just like that. Okay. Now, we're going to let him sit for a while so the glue can dry. When your pin pal's glue is dry, you can add your pins and needles from your sewing kit to your pin pal. Your pin pal will keep these things handy and organized, and they'll all be ready for you when you're ready to sew. So enjoy. Thank you for sewing with me. And I hope to see you in a couple of weeks when we will be making cat and mouse finger puppets from felt. Take care.